Hey guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Well, I hope you guys are all keeping warm this weekend. As a Floridian down here, we've been getting down into the 30s again, and that's really cold. I'm not, I'm not built for the cold, and I've been in Florida most of my life, so I am definitely a Floridian, regardless of the fact that I was born in New York, and I just don't do the cold so well. So I've been having to wear a lot of socks and jackets. Yep. And I prefer to wear my sandals without socks. But all right, before we get into today's video, which is obviously going to be about the Idaho 4 and suspect Bryan Kohberger. I always like to feature a missing persons poster on the channel, so let me pull up today's poster. Today's missing person is going to be Joshua Henry. He is missing from Fairfield, Ohio. He's been missing since January 11th. He is 15 years old. He's a male. Black, height is 6 foot 3 inches, 170 pounds, brown hair, and brown eyes. It states Joshua was last seen in Fairfield, Ohio on January 11th, 2023. He was wearing a black and gray sweatsuit and Fila tennis shoes. If you have any information on this 15-year-old, please contact the Fairfield Police Department at 513-829-8201. Looks like there's another number at the bottom there at 855-224-6446. And of course, you can always call 911 if you have any information. Again, this is 15-year-old missing juvenile teenager Joshua Henry from Fairfield, Ohio. So please give them a call if you have any information. So I've got a few things to go through since I haven't done a video on this one in a few days. This one has been going around that Idaho suspect Bryan Kohberger has said he felt no emotion and little remorse. And this is apparently from posts from when he was like 16 years old. So let's check out this video from News Nation that goes over that information.
We're tracking new revelations as well about the Idaho murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, not expected back in court again until late June. Right now, he's being held without bail. We have now learned that Kohberger had posted in an online forum discussing his struggles with mental health and in messages he sent to friends obtained by the New York Times. As a teenager, he allegedly described suicidal thoughts, saying he felt, quote, no emotion and little remorse. I want to bring in Tracy Walder, former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
We are seeing reports of these old posts where he is having suicidal thoughts. He's observing his life as if he's in a video game, that he felt like, quote, an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. He could, quote, do whatever he wanted with little remorse. In these recent revelations, what is standing out to you?
Well, I think really what's standing out is this is clearly someone who was struggling, with their mental health. And these kind of online musings, I have to wonder if they were almost sort of a cry for help. I'm not sure that he had conversations with his family. However, him kind of putting it out there in the internet ether is clearly a cry for help. I think we have to be careful. Just because someone is struggling, with mental health issues, might be suicidal, suffering from visual snow, doesn't necessarily, make them a murderer. So I think the prosecution is going to have to be a little careful with how they use this information.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's also information about some past drug use. Is that right?
From what I'm seeing, yes, a little bit of past drug use. And there's questions as to whether or not that drug use, did it lead to the visual snow, or was he doing these drugs to kind of alleviate the visual snow? So it's hard to know what role sort of drugs played into his system, or if he was even under the influence when he committed these murders.
And to be clear, Kohberger did not use his actual name in this chat forum. His birthday matches, as does the username matching an old email of his. But in this chat forum, he also may be talking about having visual snow syndrome, which you're alluding to. Can you tell us more about this, and is it potentially significant to this case at all?
Yeah, so I found that to be very interesting. Visual snow is exceedingly rare. It's basically, constantly seeing the world in fuzz, really, or haze. Constantly seeing bright lights flashing. All of those things can lead to migraines. All of those things can lead to lack of sleep, and all of those things can sometimes be a precursor to mental illness. So it's hard to know if he was actually diagnosed with that, or if that was something that he was sort of mulling whether or not he was dealing with the repercussions of. Also, it's been linked to drug use as well.
And we know some of our viewers immediately, when they were hearing about the potential visual snow component, were thinking about the affidavit, and specifically that moment where the surviving roommate talks about seeing him in that hallway, and obviously that roommate was left alive. In your investigator's mind, immediately does it go to that as well? Potentially, did visual snow play into that moment and interaction where maybe he did not even see that surviving roommate?
So weirdly, visual snow isn't what came to my mind. Really, what came to my mind when I thought about the fact that he perhaps didn't see the roommate was, one, just the layout of the house. He probably didn't see her, but I think also too, he had released a lot of adrenaline in committing these murders, and part of me wonders if he was just so blinded like that by that he was almost in this dream or daze like state, and that's what caused him to not see her. Yes, it certainly could have been the visual snow in terms of him not seeing straight, but that just wasn't where my mind first went.
I appreciate that, Tracy. Thank you. So with these sort of revelations, past potential online postings online, can the prosecution use any of this against Kohberger going forward as they build their case?
That's an excellent question. I doubt it, to be completely honest with you, because I think either the defense is going to use this to kind of, set up some kind of an insanity plea, which I don't think is going to happen, just because he has said that was very cognizant of what he was being charged with. I think the prosecution is going to have to be very careful in terms of how they use this, because we don't want to, further stigmatize mental health. And really, it's just circumstantial that he may have been suffering from some of these things. It didn't necessarily lead to him committing these murders.
Really appreciate that, and always appreciate your time. Tracy Walder, thank you so much.
Okay, I thought that was really interesting, and I really like this Tracy Walder. They've been having her on recently on News Nation, and I really like a lot of her insights. As far as his mental health, uh, these seem to come up, I think, with a lot of these cases where someone has allegedly. We have to continue to say that because Bryan is innocent until proven guilty. They allegedly has unalived someone or some people, and they claim, that they're insane. They got some kind of disease, what have you, and yeah, Bryan may have some of that, but a lot of us deal with anxiety and depression and other issues mental health wise, and we don't go out and stab people, shoot people. So to me, that's just not a defense, and I think a lot of juries, folks that would be on a jury wouldn't go for that either, because that's no excuse to attack someone. uh, you know, but I don't think that Bryan is, like she said, he may have mental health issues, but he's very, cognizant of a lot. I mean, the guy is book smart, if at the least. I mean, he may not be a good criminal, very novice, because I don't believe that he ever unalived someone before. I do believe he may have unalived animals or done some other issues, and for all we know, he was a peeping Tom, he was a stalker, those sorts of things. But I definitely don't believe that he did anything, in my opinion, anywhere near as violent as the what he's being accused of with these four college students. But that's no excuse, I mean, and you could be very, very smart and cognizant and still have mental health problems, and that doesn't mean that you need to go out and unalive someone. So, and then as far as the roommate goes, we're going to get into that because I want to pull up something on that. But definitely, I think that some of this is going to play into things. If the prosecution can substantiate that this forum, this was Bryan posting when he was, high school, 16, 17, I believe, is when these posts were happened. And if they can say this was him, prosecution may use it. And of course, defense may use it as well. So I do think any of these social media postings that have been discovered, if they are authentic, they may well come up during the trial. So I think that that's pretty possible. But yeah, I agree with her. He's not going to be able to plead insanity because the guy is quite aware of a lot of things. Okay, so this is off of a Philadelphia Action 6 News. It's an ABC affiliate, looks like out of Philly. They have quite an extensive, article here about what's next in this case. But I wanted to just go over, they actually go through how Bryan was, how they zeroed in on Bryan as the suspect. So let me get down to that because I wanted to discuss that a bit. Okay, so here is the portion where they state, when did Bryan Kohberger become a suspect? The Moscow Police Department released few details during the investigation, but court documents show they began looking for a white sedan seen near the home at the time of the unalivings by late November, which of course we know. They asked regional law enforcement to join the search, and on November 28th, officers at Washington State University identified Kohlburger's white Hyundai Elantra, looked up his name, and noted he had switched his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington State 5 days after the deaths. It's not exactly clear when the WSU officers relayed that information to the Moscow Police Department, which asked the public for help finding the white Hyundai Elantra in early December. So basically, WSU did relay that information. And that still is suspicious. We have heard that before, that he changed the registration. But I think that was another part of his plan, that he knew he would change his registration. So he hoped that would, keep him off the radar. Let's see. According to the court affidavit, at some point, investigators looked at Kohlberger's history and saw he had given a deputy a cell phone number during a traffic stop in August. Using the surveillance footage and cell phone data, they sketched out a possible travel route the night of the unalivings. Kohlberger's phone was turned off or on airplane mode around the time of the unalivings, police wrote in the affidavit. But the data right before it was turned off suggested he was heading in the direction of the home, and the data after it was turned back on suggested he was heading away from the home. So yeah, I know that the fence is going to pull that into question, but it's really odd. Why would he do that? Other cellular data suggested Kohlberger had traveled to the neighborhood where the victims were unalived at least a dozen times previously, always late in the evening or early in the morning, according to the affidavit. A ninth sheep was found at the home after the unalivings, and police believed it belonged to the attacker. A small amount of DNA was found on it that did not belong to the victims. Kohlberger left WSU for the winter break and was staying at his family's home in eastern Pennsylvania over the holidays. On December 27th, police in Pennsylvania recovered DNA evidence trash discarded from the family's home. The DNA evidence matched the DNA found on the sheet, according to the affidavit. So we have to remember, once you throw away something in your trash and you put it at the curb or what have you, it's free reign to be taken. So they don't need a warrant or anything to take trash. Once you put it in your can outside and you wheel that sucker to the road and you're like, all right, come get it. That's free reign. And if you are on the radar for some sort of a crime that, like obviously Bryan was, they're going to come and search your trash. Let's see. Here's about other suspects. Speculation about a co-defendant. Now, this has come up was stirred up online this week after Kohlberger's defense attorney filed a standard request for discovery document in the court case. In the request, the defense team asked for copies of evidence and any other related materials the prosecution and investigators have in the case, including details about Kohlberger's prior record, any tangible objects taken by police, the names of potential witnesses, and any, quote, statements by a co-defendant, unquote. Now that has stirred up a lot of questions. That kind of language is common in discovery requests, however, and does not necessarily mean that either the defense attorneys or prosecutors think there is a co-defendant or even another suspect in the case. Attorneys frequently use their own template for court documents as a way to make sure they don't forget any important wording. If a second person ever is charged in the case, Kohlberger's attorneys will have already requested the evidence. So basically, at this point, nobody thinks he acted with anybody else, and that was just added to the affidavit. And really, it doesn't mean anything at this point. And it's another thing that obviously social media started reading really into, and the explanation makes sense though. I mean, there's nobody else, they've never mentioned it. And yeah, Bryan did ask, or when he was arrested, he hasn't spoken much from what we understand, but he did ask initially if anyone else had been arrested. I still think that that was just to throw people off, or either that, or I think he was maybe afraid that his father, or may have been arrested, considering that he was with him in the car coming back, to Pennsylvania. But I don't think, I don't believe that he acted with anybody else. I think it was all him. He was the only one involved in this horrific crime. So let's see what happens next. Okay, so now we know we have a preliminary hearing set for June 26th, and it's expected to take about 5 days. So we just found out that they're going to do that. And yeah, June seems really a long ways away. That's, you got February, March, April, May, June. You're over 5 months out. So that's a long time obviously for the public to wait. But these guys have tons of stuff to go through. So I think that they need that time to go through it. And defense, like we said before, the, he's got enough, if you're defending yourself against a horrific crime, your defense team has a right to go through every piece of evidence, and you have a right to have the best representation. And they're going to give it to them. During the hearing, Loudoun County Prosecutor Bill Thompson is expected to attempt to convince magistrate judge that there is enough evidence to support the felony charges against Kohlburger. Defense attorney Ann Taylor will likely try to show there isn't enough evidence to justify Kohlburger being charged. The hearing will likely be the first time that the prosecution's case is detailed in court, and both sides could call witnesses or subject matter experts to testify. So this has raised questions of, will DM have to come and testify? That's a good question. Will she have to come and testify? And if she does, is she going to have to be in person, or is she going to be able to do it via, Zoom? She's definitely got to be open to be, deposed by not only the state, but the defense team. So that's a lot on, DM's shoulders, which we all are aware that's Dylan. And, regardless of how we feel on her waiting so long, I think that, we don't know the full story, and people really got to stop at trampling on her and give the girl a break. Can you imagine being in the house? You're 20 years old, you're a college student, you're away from home, and you're in this place when a stranger comes into your home and brutally attacks and unalives four of your roommates, well, three of your roommates and their boyfriend, and you happen to spot him, which the more I think about it, I think that I don't think her door was completely open. I think she may have opened it a crack to take a look, or his visuals know, or the angle. He didn't see her. But regardless of the fact that she was in shock, and she went back in her room, locked the door, and whatever happened from there happened. Thank God she was okay and she survived, as well as the other roommate who was on the first floor. But we really don't know what happened with her in that room until and unless she tells her story. So for us to, go out and, judge her, or, say all these awful things about her, which some people are doing on the internet, and I think it's horrific. The girl's been through a lot, and, we need to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's a survivor of a horrific crime, and we don't know, her complete story. We really don't. And you have the Daily Mail and other media stalking her, taking pictures of her, and posting them everywhere in all her information. That's horrific. I mean, leave the girl alone. She's a college student who, like I said, she's been through something horrible. We got to let her get through it. The girl's probably been in, care of a psychiatrist or some sort of a counselor. And gosh knows, what else is going on with her. It's not something that we can all judge. I mean, we all say, "Oh, I know I wouldn't have waited 8 hours to call 911." I wouldn't either. I would think I wouldn't either. But until and unless we are faced with that, how do we truly know what we would do? Because we don't. I mean, I can't imagine seeing something horrific, being shocked, and then hiding myself behind a locked door and falling asleep, and then waking up hours later, and which is what happened. I can't imagine doing that. But again, we don't know the full story. So until we do know that, I feel like we need to leave Dylan alone, and wait and see. And the families are being supportive of her, and the most vocal, of course, has been Kaylee's family. And Steve Gonzalez has said, she's approached him and talked to him, and he's asked for people to be kind, and as the rest of them have. So just let's all be kind to her, and let's see what happens. And I'm pretty sure that in June she's gonna probably have to testify, because she is the eyewitness. She's the one who described Bushy, which supposedly is Bryan Kohberger. She has described him for the affidavit. Obviously, the officer is putting that in there for her, but it's from her witness accounts to the detectives, what she saw on that horrific night or early morning. So we need to give this girl her space. And I really hope that the Daily Mail and the rest of them leaves her alone. Uh, this girl is not a celebrity. She's been through a horrific trauma, and I can't imagine like I said, being in her spot and being chased by the media. I really hope that she's got some protective, care, and their family's able to keep that around her, and she's got a good support system, because she's going to need it. She truly, truly is. So, further, we're saying the magistrate looks like agrees that the charges are appropriate. So on this week that they do the 5-day trial, what have you, if they agree the charges are appropriate, the case will be moved into district court, and Kohlburger will be asked to enter a plea. So that's the point when we'll have a plea. So pretty much by the end of June, we're going to know if everything's going to continue forward, and if Bryan's going to plead guilty or not guilty. And then it says the prosecutor has to let the court know if he will seek the death penalty within 60 days of the plea. Often trials in unaliving cases come a year or more after the charges were first filed. If Kohlburger goes to trial, it could be in 2024. So yeah, I don't think like same thing like Delphi. Well, Delphi could be, I suppose, later this year, but I don't foresee this Idaho case once we get through the preliminary these proceedings at the end of June. I don't believe we're going to get a trial until probably a good year from now. So, but again, we have to give all these folks a chance to go through all their evidence, and we're going to have to see what happens from there. And I want to play this. This is really interesting. It's actually today, because today is Sunday when I'm recording this. Ted Bundy, and Banfield speaks about one of the survivors of the attack. So let's check it out.
45 years ago this Sunday, the world fell apart for a young woman who was living her dream with her college-age roommates and on her own for the first time. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Debbie Ciccarelli was awakened by a noise on the other side of her bedroom wall. That's where Ted Bundy was trying to kill her roommate, Cheryl Thomas, by bashing in her head with a log as she slept. Debbie had no way of knowing what was happening in that room, nor would she ever have thought that a serial killer had broken into their house and chosen Cheryl's bedroom. The parallels to the Idaho murder case are freakishly similar. Debbie also froze, and instead of calling police right away, she called her boyfriend. And then when she did call 911, the 12 squad cars that came screaming up to the front of her house may have just scared Bundy into jumping out the kitchen window. It is possibly why she and her other roommates are alive today. Debbie's life was turned upside down in the years that followed because, of course, she became the star witness in the case against Ted Bundy. She was forced to come face to face with that killer dozens of times as he actually questioned her while acting as his own lawyer. Needless to say, as someone who has lived through this ordeal and who became a star witness, Debbie has so much that she can share with the two surviving roommates in the Idaho murders, from coping with the trauma to finding the strength to face an accused killer in court to helping to put him away. And Debbie Ciccarelli is kind enough to join me live now. Debbie, it's just such a remarkable series of coincidences, like this, the similarities between what happened in the crime against you and your roommates and what happened in Moscow. When you heard about what happened in Moscow, how did it affect you? What happened?
At first, I didn't follow it too closely, but then for some reason, I was picking up on things. And again, yeah, as you said, they just seem so similar to what we went through 45 years ago. And it's just spooky about, he even resembles Bundy in his face. Someone on TikTok had taken a picture of Bundy and the suspect in the Idaho case and compared them. And again, it's just very freaky how they resemble one another, how he stalked the girls. We were told that Bundy had stalked Cheryl and that she was his main target. And he was upset because there were some gentlemen in a car outside our house and they scared him away. And supposedly because of that, he was angry, went to the Cayo house. And after he left the Cayo house, he came directly to our house to Cheryl's side and entered through the kitchen window and proceeded to beat her with a log.
The details are so horrific, and it's for viewers who don't understand maybe the reactions of Dylan Mortensen the night where she, told the police that she saw a man clad in black, walking towards her and then heading out the kitchen door. Can you go into those moments for you when you heard the noises through the bedroom wall and froze? Can you take me from there?
Certainly. So we had been sound asleep. We'd come in that night from being out together, and I had heard this. Our house was up on blocks, and I heard this loud banging, and it startled me. I woke up and I listened for a little bit and then woke my roommate up, and I said, "There's something going on next door." And the thing is, the wall between Cheryl's side and our side was so thin that we could actually talk to each other through the wall. And we had a system that if there's something we're not feeling right about, we're going to call you. You need to answer your phone no matter what. Well, I called over there. I could hear the phone ringing. I could hear Cheryl whimpering. But I just had this real unsettling feeling, sick to my stomach. I had no idea what was going on. We thought maybe our cat was having kittens, and there was all this commotion in Cheryl's room for that. But I immediately looked at Nancy and I said, I'm going to call the guy I was dating at the time. He said, don't worry about it. I'm sure there's nothing going on. I had a few choice words, hung up the phone, immediately called 911. And they said, please stay on the phone. We're going to send a squad car. Of course, we had no idea what was happening at Cayo. And, as you said, next thing we know, there are, at least 12 squad cars and an ambulance at our house. It all happened so fast. And why I reacted the way I did, I don't know. I'm just thankful that I did.
And I suppose when you heard about the 8 hours between seeing the man in the, clad in black and the call to 911 in the morning, you probably had some insight that would be helpful for people who don't understand how Dylan didn't call in 8 hours.
Everybody reacts to situations differently. I can't give an explanation of why she reacted the way she did and why I reacted the way I did. Mine was, like I say, an instant gut feeling to call law enforcement within minutes of hearing this strange noise next door. And, I just hope that she is not taking any of this as her fault and that she is seeking, reaching out to her family and friends. And when she gets to a point years down the road, as I did, I talk about it as much as I can to anybody and everybody. It helps. It's been very therapeutic for me.
I hope that Debbie can be really good for Dylan. For all we know, she's reached out to her at this point or offered that in some way. Like I said, there's just so many people online, and I wanted to show that because not only does it intrigue me how there's connections not just only to BTK, but I believe that Bryan also studied Ted Bundy. If he's the kind of guy that we are thinking that he is, of course, this is all allegedly and what we're thinking because none of this is fact. He studied a lot of these serial unalivers, and I believe Ted Bundy was probably one of them. And he may have taken a page or two from the Ted Bundy book. But as far as Dylan is concerned, I really do. Like I said, we all have questions, and I think that that's okay that we all have questions, but we just need to let this girl get through this. And I think hearing Debbie's story of her experience being a survivor from Bundy, I hope that that could be some sort of a help for Dylan, most of all, and as well as, Bethany. We still don't know what the other roommate knows because she wasn't really mentioned in the affidavit, really, and for the public because we can't put ourselves, like I said, in this poor girl's shoes. And until we know more, we just need to be supportive. And if nothing else, the families of these 4 college kids are giving her love and support, and they're the ones that lost their children and their brothers and their sisters. And I think that we all need to be just as supportive and in Dylan's corner at this point. So, yeah. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like I said, when we all read that affidavit, I think it was okay that we all were like stunned and we all questioned Dylan, but we all need to come out now and say, you know what? We weren't there. We don't know. But I wanted to get that video in there. I thought that was really excellent when I found that one from News Nation, with Banfield talking to the survivor, Debbie survivor from the Bundy attacks. And I think we can learn something from these other survivors as much as they can, they can teach us a lot. So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, there's so much more to come on this case, as well as other cases that I'm still covering here on the channel. If you do me a favor on your way out, if you like the video, hit that thumbs up, that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love it if you would. And just hit that subscribe, that red button, and notification bell. That way you'll know every time I post a new video. Hopefully YouTube will let you know. I hear sometimes YouTube is not necessarily the most reliable, but hey, we'll take what we can get. All right, guys, have a great rest of the day, and most of all, stay safe.